Okay guys, I told you that I wanted you tonight to do for homework page 3 of this little packet, numbers 2 and number 8, and page 4, which is the very back of the last page, numbers 4 and number 6. Okay, this is just more practice with limiting reagent and excess reagent. This is some practice with percent yield, which we learned in class today but did not have time to practice any problems. Okay, so I'm going to do number 2 first on page 3, and I've actually gotten a lot of it set up already. So number 2A says determine the mass of calcium phosphate produced. Okay, so I'm looking for calcium phosphate. Here's my reaction. I went ahead and wrote it. I'm looking for calcium phosphate, and I was given 2 givens, right? If you see 2 givens, you're doing 2 stoic problems. So I was given 100 grams of calcium carbonate, 45 grams of iron phosphate. Make sure your reaction is balanced before you do anything else. So I want the mass of calcium phosphate, okay? But I've got 2 givens. So it's okay. I'm just going to do 2 stoics to figure that out. Okay, so I've got my 2 stoic problems already set up with my first given going all the way to calcium phosphate, with my second given going all the way to calcium phosphate. This is how much I can produce with this amount of calcium carbonate. This is the maximum I can produce with this amount of iron phosphate. Okay, so the maximum amount I can produce is your smallest amount of product. Okay, so this is my theoretical yield. Okay, you've got 2 yields, right? You've got 2 answers, but this is your theoretical yield because this is the only amount you can possibly make. This means that this one, 45.0 grams of iron phosphate, is our limiting reagent, and this guy is my excess reagent. Okay, so remember my little tip for you. If you know your limiting reagent, this is now everything. Okay, this is what you're going to use for every other problem. Technically, guys, you could also use your theoretical yield, your answer to your limiting reagent as well, because these are equal, right? We've just converted 35 grams of iron phosphate to grams of calcium phosphate. These mean the same thing. Okay, so then that takes care of A and B. And then C says determine the mass of excess reagent. Remember, the difficult part of this is sometimes we're asking for how much reagent was used, sometimes we're asking how much reagent is left. Okay, so if we say determine the mass of excess reagent, we're asking what mass is in excess, what mass is left. Okay, so to find that, we're just doing a third stoic problem. Okay, we're going to take the mass of my limiting reagent. We're going to start stoic with our limiting reagent, and we're going to convert it to the excess. I need to know how much calcium carbonate would react with 45 grams of iron phosphate. Okay, again, guys, you can start it with this or this. You will get the same answer. I just, out of habit, start it with my limiting reagent. Okay, so I convert it to grams of calcium carbonate, and I get 44.7 grams of calcium carbonate. That's how much is used. Okay, 44.7 grams of calcium carbonate is reacted with 45.0 grams of iron phosphate. But we want how much is in excess. Okay, so now we just take what we had. I had 100 grams. I used 44.7 grams, and that means that I have, you guys can probably do all that in your head, you smarties, 55.3 grams in excess. Okay, or left. Voila. And then D says how many grams of iron 3 carbonate could be formed from the above reaction. Okay, so now I want iron 3 carbonate. Okay, it gives me no givens. How am I supposed to know what to even start with? What was my tip for you? If you know you are a limiting reactant, That's your given for the rest of your STOIC problems. So you're just going to take 45.0 grams of iron phosphate and convert it to grams of iron carbonate. Okay, I'm going to, oops, you can't even see what I'm doing, I'm sorry guys. So I'm going to take my limiting reactant and convert it to my new wanted. I'm not going to fill all these in. You can find the key to these on It's Learning. So I'll let you check your work on this one. And then I'm going to stop the video and I'll film a separate one for page 4, numbers 4 and 6. Those are my percent yield ones.